Carlos Palomino, thank you very much for coming on to the boxingbar.com and welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Hall of Famer, what do you think about when you hear that?
Well, no, it's an absolute honor. I mean, I had it in my mind that I was probably not gonna get inducted into I got inducted into the smaller, Hall of Fames
right
in California. California Hall of Fame,
local Hall of Fame. Yes.
I'm even in the Sports Hall of Fame of Orange Coast College where I attended. Oh, wow. Even though boxing is not part of the college, but they figured out a way to get me. They got me in. I'm in the Sports Hall of Fame of Orange Coast College, where I went to junior college. So, but when people talked about the international, which is the big one, I just never thought I would get there because I had it in my mind when I won the title. I came back home and then I was invited to a luncheon. There was a monthly luncheon at the Spaghetti Factory in Los Angeles. There was all the old-time fighters from the 40s and 50s and 60s. So I went, and I was sitting between Mushy Callahan, who was a welterweight champion of the world in the late 40s, and Jimmy McLaughlin, who was a 140-pound champion at the same time. They were like in their 60s, and, I'm here. I just got back. I'm 26. And they go, "Hey, kids, are you the new champ, huh?" So I said, "Yeah." So then Mushy said, "How many fights you got?" And I said, 26, because I won the title of my 26th fight. And he goes, man, anybody can win a world title nowadays.
Oh, wow.
And I go, what do you mean? He's like, in my day, in fact, he told me that he was 40-0 at one time, and his manager called Madison Square Garden to try to get him a main event fight. And the matchmaker in Madison Square Garden said, "What's the kid's record?" And he said 40-0. So he goes, "Go tell the kid to make a record, and maybe we'll think about it."
And it's funny because there's a lot of fighters around your time that now when they watch boxing, they pretty much say the same thing about you guys.
Yeah.
Or you say the same about them, I mean.
Yeah, no. And then he told me, "Listen," he goes, "I'm going to tell you something." He goes, "If you make 5 title defenses, you're going to be considered a good champion. If you make more than 5, you're going to be considered an excellent champion." He said, "If you make 10 or more, you're going to be a great champion." So right from that moment in my head, I thought, okay, I got to get 10 title defenses because I want to be considered a great champion, right?
Right.
So I got to 7, and then, I still feel I got robbed in Puerto Rico in my 8th title defense, and then I retired because I just got kind of fed up with the game and the politics. So just because I didn't get to 10, I thought, okay, I'm not going to get into the International Hall of Fame. So when I got the call, actually 2 years before I was inducted in 2004, I got a call. I got invited to the International Boxing Hall of Fame ceremonies. And I can't quite remember who was inducted at that time, but I went. So then I heard that when you get invited like that, then the next step is you're going to get inducted. So then 2 years later, I get a call, and I'm in, and it was just a huge surprise. It's just a huge honor to be, included with such great champions from the history of boxing.
Absolutely, and to kind of talk about how you got there, you were born in Mexico, right? But raised here.
Yeah, I was born in Sonora, and with my family and my dad and my mom, and with 3 boys and 2 girls, we immigrated in 1960. To the United States. I got here. I was 10 years old, almost going to be 11, and lived in Santa Ana for a couple of years in Southern Cal, and then moved to Westminster, where I spent the rest of my childhood and high school. And I was there in 1970 when I got drafted into the United States Army, and that's what actually kicked off my boxing career. I started when I was 20 almost. Actually, I went into the Army in March of 1970, and I turned 21 that August of that year, and entered the Fort Hood boxing tournament in Fort Hood, and I won it, and they sent me to the All Army Championships, and I won that, and that was it. Once I won the All Army tournament, I stayed on the Army boxing team, and that's where my amateur career took place. And it was amazing because I went in, I had I didn't have any real boxing experience except that my dad was a huge boxing fan, and we always had boxing gloves in the house from the time that I can remember when I was 4 or 5 years old, and my dad loved the game. He never boxed, but he learned on his own, and then he taught me and my older brother. Both of us, he taught us the basics, jab, right hand, left hook, and then he would put the gloves on us and tell us to box each other. And even in Sonora, when we were kids in Sonora, he would even pay a neighborhood kid to come over and put the gloves on with us. And so that was, my experience growing up until I turned about 12 years old. I told him, I'm not going to box. I'm never going to box. You can kill me if you want. I don't like it. And that was it. After that, he just stopped demanding that we put the gloves on, and I wanted to play baseball. That was my first love,
Oh, wow.
and so I didn't box again until I got in the Army. But I had all that early experience from from the time I was 5 till I was like 12, 13 years old of just putting the gloves on with my brother and the neighborhood kids, and my dad teaching us, the basics, that's all I had. And just with that, I was able to win these tournaments my first coach in the Army just looked at me and said, "You're a natural. This is, you were born to do this." And I was like, "No, I wasn't. I want to play baseball."
Was there ever chances that you would try to go towards the Olympics or go towards doing that?
Oh yeah, I actually, I won the 1972. Actually, I won the 1971 Pan American trials, so I had, to represent the United States in the Pan Am Games.
Oh, wow.
But then I was told right after the tournament that I couldn't represent the United States because I wasn't an American citizen. I was, I had a green card, even though I was drafted into the Army. So then, the Army said, okay, don't worry. My boxing coaches said, okay, we're going to make sure you get your citizenship so you can compete in the Olympic trials in '72. Mm-hmm. So I won the '72 National AU Championship. I beat Sugar Ray Seals, who in the final of the National AAU Championship, who was the only gold medal winner in the '72 Olympic Games.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Ray Seals.
Yeah. So, yes. Yeah. So then, I just didn't get around to it. And I wasn't able to compete in the Olympics because I wasn't an American citizen. So I know, I mean, that whole team in the Olympics, I kept a close eye on them because Sugar Ray Seals was on the team and he won a gold medal, and I had beaten him in the '72 National AAU Championships. So I kept an eye on that whole team, and I just told my coaches after I was leaving the Army, I completed my 2-year term and I was done coming home. I told them I'm going to turn pro and I'm going to be the first guy from this tournament to win a world title. I told them. Wow. And I left. I came home. I turned pro. I also enrolled in college at the same time, so I was doing both, going to school and training for my professional fights. And in 1976, I won the title in London.
How did that make you feel when you saw Ray Seals win the gold medal, especially knowing you had beaten him and then you see him go win the title? How did that make you feel?
It was kind of like I let it go. I didn't let it affect me because I knew that it was kind of politics. Because I could have gone to Vietnam. I wasn't an American citizen, but they would have sent me to Vietnam.
Yeah, it's weird. But they wouldn't let you represent the United States. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I just I used it to my advantage as a motivation tool to show everybody that they made a mistake. And I never really in fact I Ray and I are friends on Facebook now. Yeah. And I never really thought about the fact that I kind of got screwed out of the Olympics. In fact, I was at an event in Southern California, boxing matches that the Goosen brothers used to promote. And one of the Olympic Committee members from the '72 games was at the fights, and he came over to me and he put his arm around me and he said, "Hey, do you forgive me?" so I knew that they were they all knew they screwed me out of an opportunity to represent the United States in the Olympics.
Yeah,
but I had represented the Army in a lot of international competitions. So in the Army I went to Holland to fight in an international competition against military teams. 24 world free trade teams were at these tournaments in Holland. And then I went to Italy and boxed in another tournament. It was all military teams, 25 countries represented. And so, I got a chance to compete internationally. That's why I think I was able to, my career as a professional moved quickly, because I had fought the best in the world, as amateurs. In the amateurs, I was ready for really stiff competition really early in my career. I mean, I was an amateur when I came back and I turned pro. My manager, Jackie McCoy, who managed 5 world champions,
right.
He became my manager, and he told me, okay, I want you to come to a training camp. And it was Mondo Ramos. Mondo Ramos was the lightweight champion of the world that was getting ready to defend his title. He took me to his camp. I was his sparring partner as an amateur. I didn't have one pro fight, and I was sparring Mondo Ramos, a world champion.
Wow. Oh, man. Mondo Ramos, Raul Rojas.
Yeah. Both of those guys I sparred before I even took pro. So, and so, I think that's why I was able to accomplish what I did pretty quickly in my career.
They were longshoremen, right? Jackie McCoy.
Oh yeah, Jackie McCoy was a longshoreman. That was his regular job, and he managed world champions on his side job.
Yeah, that's crazy. Your career-long trainer, Noe Cruz, was roofer for over 30 years, and he helped train some troubled youths in the Stanton Athletic Club in Orange County in the mid-'60s. Was that your first meeting with him, or what was your first meeting?
No. When I got drafted, my brother had been drafted 2 years before me, so he got out in '70, and then they drafted me because at that time you couldn't draft 2 family members at the same time. So he came out in 1970, and they drafted me. And he told me, "You better get in shape because they're going to kick your butt in the basic training." I went to the Stanton Athletic Club just to get in shape, and I met Noe Cruz, and he told me, "Hey, you want to box?" I said, "No, I'm just getting ready to go to the Army." And he was the one who told me, "Well, you can box in the Army. There's an Army boxing team." And I was like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "In fact," he said, "if you wait, there's a guy that trains here who was on the Army boxing team, and he's a pro now." He goes, "You'll be here in a couple of minutes." He goes, "You wait, talk to him and see, maybe he can give you some advice." And then walks this guy. He introduced me as Mondo Muniz.
You would later fight him 2 times as a pro.
Yeah, and Mondo was on the Army boxing team. He was actually an American citizen, so he represented the United States in the '68 Olympics. He was on the boxing team.
Yes.
And he told me, "Yeah, there's a boxing team." He goes, "But it's not going to be easy to make it." He said, "There's a lot of guys that try to make that team because, once you make it, all you do is represent the Army in boxing. You don't have to do any of the basic training, any of the Army stuff. You don't have to do any of that. You just train and you box. That's it." And he actually, make a little extra money too. They pay you an extra money for being on the boxing team. And I was like, "Oh, wow." And so then Noe Cruz said, "Let me work with you a little bit before you go in." So, I had 2 months. So he just started using the pads with me. He started training a little bit. And then 2 weeks before the fight, he told me, "Maybe you should have a fight before you go in the Army." And I said, "Well, how am I going to do that?" He said, I'll find a spot." So then the next day he said, "Okay, this Saturday we're going to go to Chino Prison." Chino Prison, they had smokers. You didn't need an amateur license. You could just go weigh in and you get a match and you get a boxing match and you fight. This was entertainment for the inmates. So I go with him. He takes me. We weigh in, and there's an inmate who's a boxer who's in prison weighing in, and I weighed in about 145 pounds. He was like 155. And then Noe says, "We'll take that fight." And I looked at Noe and I said, "Hey, that was too big, man. You can got muscles on that guy."
Yeah.
And he tells me, "Don't worry, guys in prison can't fight." I mean, it was a knockdown, drag out amateur fight, 3 rounds in front of the whole, all inmates.
Yeah.
And I ended up winning the fight. So, and then I had one more smoker before I went in the Army. And then that was it. And then I ended up, winning all those tournaments. Then when I got out of the Army, I came back to Noe and I said, "I want to turn pro. I want you to train me." And he said, "Yeah, but I've never trained a professional. I never had a pro. I've always just been working with amateur kids." So he goes, "Let's go to Jackie McCoy." So we called Jackie. We got a meeting with him. And then he said, "What's your story?" So I said, "I'm a all-Army champion. I'm an all-service champion. I'm a national AU champion. And he goes, that doesn't mean anything. It's all amateur stuff. So he goes, I'm going to tell you what. He goes, come to Mondo Ramos camp, spar with him. I'll watch you, and if I think you got it, I'll sign you. And yeah, like 2 weeks after I was at camp, we signed the contract for him to manage me. Actually, him and Noe became co-managers. They became partners, and we had a great relationship and great careers together.
And like you said, you had a solid foundation there. That you racked up from your amateur years to go on to the pros, and you made that pro debut in September 14th of 1972 there at the Olympic Auditorium. What was that?
Yeah.
What was that debut like? Going in there the first time, and as a pro and all that stuff. What was it like for you?
I was really, really nervous, right? Because I remember it was a big fight between a Mexican American guy and a guy from at the Olympic Auditorium. Whenever you had a fighter from Mexico and a Mexican from the United States, it would sell out, because you had the Mexican American fans and you had the Mexican fans, and so it was packed, So I'm in the dressing room. I'm fighting a 4-rounder, and I am the last guy on the card. I'm the last. So I'm walking out after the main event. I'm walking out, and people are walking out of the stadium. They're leaving because they figure the fights are over.
Yeah.
There's one more 4-rounder. It's me. And people are leaving, and I sort of I get in the ring, I look out into the stadium, and there's like a few fans left, So I was like, oh man. But Eileen Eaton, the promoter, she was there. She was the one you had to impress, right? Because she would tell your manager, okay, this kid's got it, or nah, I don't think this guy. Yeah. And she wasn't sold on me. After that fight, I won the decision, but she told Jackie, he won all those championships as an amateur. He didn't look that good, So she was not very excited about me. In fact, I was 11-0, and still she was not sold on me. And it wasn't until I lost my first fight to Andy Price in San Diego. I was supposed to fight at the Olympic Auditorium, and my opponent fell out because he got hurt in sparring, and then I told Jackie, you got to give me a fight. I was going to school. I was on my GI bill. I was getting $300 a month from the GI for going to school. And my first 4-round fight, I made $80.
Oh, wow.
So, I had fought 4 4-rounders, 4 6. The 6-rounders was $150 a fight. So then I was offered an 8-round fight in San Diego with Andy Price. And that was going to be $300. So I said, you got to take that fight. And Jackie knew Andy, and he said, no, man. Andy at that time was 18-0. I was 11-0. And he said, no, you're not ready for that. He's going to be too much right now. And I said, no, I'll take the fight. I'll beat him. I guarantee that I'll beat him. So we took the fight in San Diego, and I lost decision. And then,
he had also beaten Pepino Cuevas, I believe, by decision.
Yeah. Well, that was after. He beat. That was funny because I only had 11 fights. He beat Pepino with Pepino. I mean, the fight after that fight, Pepino got the title fight right after he lost to Andy Price.
Yeah, that's right.
So so Eileen got really upset at me that I lost the fight in a different venue, and she made me beg for another fight. And finally, she finally gave me another fight, and I ended up. I was 11-1 and won one draw. Jackie said, we got to fight this guy. His name was Nelson Ruiz. He was from Venezuela, and he was like 22-2 with 19 knockouts. And I thought, shit, I said, 19 knockouts? What? That's a banger. And they go out. Jackie said, that's it, man. That's what she's offering. We got to show her that, what you're made of. And I knocked the guy out in the 6th round. And then that's what convinced her that I was ready. And then, because I looked out into the audience, and she was standing up when they counted the guy out. Like she was saying, "Okay, all right," and that was the beginning of the move towards winning the world title.
Hey, you fought a large percentage of your fights there at her stage there at the Olympic Auditorium. And I've interviewed a lot of fighters that fought there, and everybody talks about the dungeon, about that long walk, and like I said, you fought a large percent of your fights there. What was it like, for you to walk that, up that tunnel and that
tunnel? No, man, the first time was, because it was downstairs, underground. It was like underground downstairs. There's dressing rooms, like little tiny dressing rooms. And then there was like one big one. My friend, remember my first 4-rounder. I'm sitting in this dressing room, and all the guys fighting 4-rounders are sitting in the same dressing room. And we're all looking at each other like, "Who you're fighting? That guy? The guy you're fighting is sitting right across from you." You know? And then you take that long walk, man. It got easier as they went along. You know, when I was fighting the main events, 10-rounders, and I was the main event of the fight. You know, it was amazing because just the fans, you know, the fans. I mean, those fans at the Olympic Auditorium were real boxing fans. They knew the game, you know. So when you came out, I mean, I had a couple of fights there against guys that were awesome fight. Most of their fight, you know, like when I fought Armando Muñiz, the first fight at the Olympic, he was a favorite. I mean, he was a crowd favorite, and they cheered him when he came out. They booed me when I came out. So, you know, so yeah, it was a special experience doing that, walking out of that dungeon and walking that long walk. And you know, then you had, you know, you usually had, you know, the mariachi playing. It was just amazing. Yeah.
Oh wow. Jackie McCoy, you know, he trained a bunch of fighters, you know, Armando Ramos, Raul Rojas, El Gato Gonzalez, and even referee Richard Steele, you know, when he was a light heavyweight.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what was he like as a trainer? What do you remember of him?
Oh, no, he was just really, first of all, he was a really down-to-earth guy who had been a fighter himself. And he and Noy, you know, they cold trained me. And usually Jackie would stand outside the ring, and they would both, you know, when I was sparring, they would both stand outside the ring. And then I go back to the corner, you could see them talking to each other. And then Jackie would give me instruction, you know, because he was the one, and he was very knowledgeable about the game, you know, and was very had a dry sense of humor of how he tried to motivate me. I mean, you know, it was like it wasn't like a rah, 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 you know, what are you doing? It was like, you know, I remember in London when I was, you know, in the fight with John Stracey, I came back in like the 4th round, and he was like, "All right, I'm not going to tell you anything. Just keep doing what you're doing." He said, "You're beating the shit out of him. Just keep doing what you're doing." You know, and so he was very, he gave very minimal instruction because he didn't want to tell you head was shit that you didn't need to have. You know, it's just a very simple stuff like, you know, watch out for this, watch out for that, or, you know, and always, you know, his main thing, you know, I never saw him fight and, you know, I didn't know what kind of style he had, but he was always very, very adamant about boxing and using your jab. As an amateur, I was a really aggressive fighter. I just came forward. I went forward all the time. And I kind of did that in my first few pro fights until I learned. They both taught me how to box, how to move, how to be aggressive, and also how to box, you know, how to stay on the outside. Because the first fight with Armando Muñiz, I made a mistake of trying to trade with him, and, you know, which was his style, you know, fighting inside.
Right.
And I was losing the fight, you know, and then finally Jack is saying, "Man, listen, you're going to fight that way. You're going to lose your title, the first title defense." And so he said, you know, so, I mean, that was his way of motivating me, because you're going to lose your title on your first title defense because you're boxing the wrong fight. Just get outside. Because we had trained to box him, you know. He said, "You trained to box this guy, and you're not boxing him. You're fighting him." So then from like the 8th round, I started moving on the outside and just, you know, pot shot at him and boxing and moving. And that's what got me the win. Otherwise, I probably would have lost that fight.
What did you think of that news they were going to be fighting him?
Oh, no, man. When they told me I was, you know, he was the number 1 contender. And back in our day, you know, you didn't pick who you wanted to fight like they do now. Yeah. The WBC told you you're going to fight this number 1. That's who you're fighting. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was like, what? Like, oh, man, Armando Muñiz. Because, you know, in those early, while I was in the Army boxing team, I came home a couple of times on leaves, and I would go to the Stanton Athletic Club and spar, and I would spar with Mondo, and he just would kick the hell out of me, just beat the crap out of me every day in the gym, you know. And so that's what Mondo remembered. So I remember I heard people, he was telling people he was going to knock me out, and, you know, he beat the crap out of me in sparring all the time. And so I had that same feeling. Oh, man, I said, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And then, you know, Noe and Jackie, we sat down and we made a plan of how we were going to box him, and we were going to box him. But then he was talking so much crap that it got into my head. And I said to myself, I'm going to beat him in his own game, you know. And I made that mistake of first 5-6 rounds, I was fighting inside, and then I was losing. So yeah, I was really really nervous because I also remembered those ass kickers he gave me when I was just starting out.
About a little over a year before that, you fought a tough dude by the name of Hedgeman Lewis. Very tough guy, very underrated guy. What do you remember about that fight with Hedgeman Lewis?
Well, no, yeah, Hedgeman was really slick. I mean, he had already fought for the title, twice. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Jose Montequianopoulos was a welterweight champion of the world, Hedgeman would have won the title against anybody else. But Montequia was just special. Yeah. In my opinion, he's probably the best welterweight.
A lot of people say that.
Yes. Whoever fought. So he had that bad luck that he had to fight Montequia twice, and he lost both times, lost decisions. And he was just really slick. But one of the things that I knew, he was a little bit older. I think he was like 35, 36 already. And so I knew I had to put a lot of pressure on him, and then hopefully I would be able to tire him out and get him in the later rounds. And that's how the fight went. And I mean, the fight ended up a draw. He thought he won the fight, and I thought I won the fight because it was close though. But fight ended up in a draw, and that's what got me the title fight. Everything happens for a reason. It was a gift from God, because we signed to fight a rematch like 6 weeks. I mean, we had a rematch clause, and so. Then 2 weeks before the fight, I mean, I was in the gym. I was getting ready for a rematch. And 2 weeks before the fight, we get a call from the Olympic. Eileen Eden tells Jackie McCoy that they're asking to let out of the contract because he was being offered a title fight in London against John Stracey. So Jackie said, well, what do you want to do? He said that to Eileen Eden. And Eileen said, okay, well, let's figure out what to do here that'll benefit Carlos. So then she came up with this idea. She told them, okay, we'll let Hedgeman out of the contract, but you have to pay Carlos, $2,000, and you have to guarantee him a title fight against the winner. So the promoter in London agreed. Okay, yeah, we'll do it. So she got a contract, with a deal saying that I would get a title fight against the winner. And so, Jackie and me and Noe, we got together. We watched the fight together on TV. And, he destroyed Hedgeman Lewis. I mean, in the 8th round, Hedgeman looked like, he got stopped, and I was like, man. And so we called, he came back and we called Hedgeman and we got together with him and said, hey, I told him what happened, man. He looked like, you were boxing really good in the early rounds. And then by the 8th round, you looked like you were done. He goes, man, he said, that guy is strong. He goes, man, he just put his weight on me, man. He goes, by the 8th round, I couldn't feel my legs. My legs felt like they were gone. I said, what, didn't you train? Didn't you run? He goes, no, man, you got to train hard. He goes, guy is just strong. So then after we left that meeting and we were in the car driving, and Noe was a roofer, right? He walked up and down stairs with, jugs of tar on his shoulder, and, he was about 6'1". He was about 190. He said, I know what we're going to do. I said, what? He goes, well, tomorrow when you come to the gym, we'll talk about it. So, we went to the gym. He goes, hey, this is what we're going to do. Every day after you get through boxing and sparring and hitting the bag, everything, you get through your whole full workout, you're going to get in the ring with me, and we're just going to wrestle in the ring. I said, what do you mean? He said, you put your hands on my shoulders, I put my hands on your shoulders, and you're just going to tug. We'll do like a tug of war kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You just push with your legs, just around the ring. We'll do 5 rounds every day of that, just pushing and tugging after the whole workout. I was exhausted. And, here's a guy, 190 pounds. I'm trying to push, with my legs. And so that's what we did in preparation. 6 weeks of training, 150 rounds of sparring for that fight, and that tug of war with Noe Cruz after every workout. When that fight started, he came right at me and, tried to push his shoulders on me. I just bumped him off me like he was like a little, like he didn't weigh anything, after the wars I had with Noe in the ring, just pushing and tugging. And yeah, so it just made it easy. I was ready as ready as anybody can be for that fight. I think that's what did it. He wasn't able to push me around or
Yeah.
use his strength against me.
Yeah, I mean, if you were pushing around a guy at 190,
Yeah.
your weight's going to be like nothing compared to that. You know?
Yeah. So that's what did it. And that was Noe's idea too. So
that fight with Stracey, I just saw it just maybe about 3 days ago. I was watching it, and what do you remember about there at Wembley with all those people, obviously against you? And
it's really funny because as an amateur, when I went, like I told you, when I went to London, when I went to Holland, when I went to Italy to fight in those big tournaments, I would fight in front of 40, 50,000 fans in Holland, where the tournament took place in a bike racing stadium. I didn't realize, but bike racing is huge in Europe. When the speed racing, they race around a track, and 40, 50,000 people sitting in the stands. And then they came out for the boxing too. There was a lot of press on the international boxing tournament. It was all military, and we just got 30, 40,000 fans just about every night of boxing. So I was used to having big fighting in front of big crowds. And the crowds that were not fans of us, it's funny. I don't know why, but it's like everywhere you go, when it comes to competition, they don't like the Americans.
Yeah, I bet.
We fought there was an Italian team, the Holland team, we had a Japanese team, we had an Iranian team. And it's just like they always dislike the Americans more than anybody else. And so I was used to fighting, I was used to that. So the crowd in London was amazing. Not only because, they were all against me, of course, but I never let that bother me. I focused on what I had to do in the ring. But, after the fight, when I got out of the ring, I had fans were coming up to me and congratulating me. English fans, and they were like taking pictures with me and asking for autographs. And so, it was just an amazing night. I actually did an interview with a guy from Scotland on the phone, and he asked me the same question, and I told him the answer. He goes, "That's probably all Scottish fans because they were mad you beat the crap out of the Englishman."
So you fight John Stracey, and actually we kind of went backwards there. We talked about the Muniz fight already. You fought Stracey, then you fight Muniz, another fellowman of John Stracey, Dave Boy Green. Is your next opponent, and he's trying to avenge that victory for Stracey. What do you remember about that fight with Green? Again in Wembley.
What was funny about that is that when I was in London the last 2 weeks training for the Stracey fight, we needed sparring, and somebody sent a guy over to spar with me, and it was Dave Boy Green.
Oh.
And so we sparred, 3 or 4 days. And so when Jackie told me, Dave Boy Green is number one, and we're going to go to London and defend against. That was my third title defense. I said, Dave Boy Green, who's that? He goes, yes, the name of that kid. He came and he sparred with him. I guess, oh man, I don't like that guy out. He was easy. He was just a really strong kid, and he was just walking in trying to bang you out like with, heavy punches, but he was easy to hit, so that's what I thought. Then, he had, now we're fighting, he has improved a lot. And he was just a really, really, really tough guy. Tough kid, man. A hard puncher, was walking in, just trying to take me out with every shot he threw. And I knew it was going to be a war, and it was, because I wasn't going to let him. If I had let him just kind of intimidate me, his confidence would have grown. Who knows what would have happened? But I finally got him out of there in the 11th round. I caught him with a really short left hook that just put him out completely. But that was a really, really hard fight. One of the hardest fights in my career.
Yeah, and one of the good ones to watch too. You knocked him out. You got him in the 11th round, and you could tell he was a banger. And you could tell it was he was no joke. He was undefeated, 24-0 walking in, and he had his stuff together. You could tell.
And you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but at the weigh-in, I looked at his shoulders, and he had shoulders like a middleweight. He had kind of skinny legs, but his upper body was huge. I was like, damn, this guy's gonna hit hard, So yeah, I remember that very clearly.
And you have several victories after that, about 4. after your fight with Green, and then you get your rematch with Mondo Muniz. What do you remember about that fight? Was it just kind of a carbon copy of the first one, or was it?
Yeah, it was. Except that I boxed from the beginning, and but I broke my hand in the sixth round. My left hand, I hit him with a hook on top of the head, and I broke the fifth metacarpal in my knuckle. And so from the 6th to the 15th, I didn't have a left hand. I couldn't jab. I mean, it was so much pain. But nobody in the stadium knew I broke it. I mean, not even my corner. At the end, after the 15th, I went back and because Jackson kept complaining that I wasn't using my left hand. So at the end, when I walked back, I said, I think I broke my left hand. He goes, oh crap! Took the glove off. You can see, and he took the handband off, the wrap, and my knuckle was sunken in. It was gone. But I just thought boxing with that, that the second was easier. And he was older, so it was, and then I heard that, he was, trying to run for office. He was running for mayor, something for Montebello, city council for the city of Montebello, where he grew up. So, I didn't think he had trained as well as he did for the first one. So I was able to just outbox him, stand the outside, and just beat him with basically one hand with my right hand.
And you were known as to have the nickname King. When did you get that nickname, and also who gave it to you?
Oh my God, I was I came back from London, and right away Eileen Eden wanted me to go to the Olympic so they could introduce me as a new welterweight champion, and being her champion because that's where I started. And she was promoting me, and I get there and I'm sitting ringside with Jackie and Noe, and then before the main event, Jimmy Lennon, who was the ring announcer, calls me up and he introduces me, ladies and gentlemen, the new welterweight champion, King Carlos Palomino. And I was like, what? King Carlos? And I went up and afterwards, after he came down, because, after the announcer, fight started, he came down, he was sitting right now, and I walked up to him and I said, King Carlos, where did you come up with that? He goes, yesterday. He goes, when I found out you were going to come and I was going to introduce you, I was reading the LA Times, and right in the headline it said King Carlos of Spain dies. so as soon as I saw that King Carlos, I said, King Carlos Palomino.
So now you're the new King Carlos.
Yeah, that's how he came up with it. I was like, my God.
He was known to do that too, right? He gave a lot of fighters their names, right?
He gave everybody nicknames, right? But he always came up with great nicknames for people,
And your next fight was with the Radar Wilfred Benitez, 36-0. One draw, but he was a tough dude. He was known to have a great defense, the youngest welterweight champion ever. What do you remember about the fight with him in San Juan?
Well, first of all, I didn't understand having to go defend it in Puerto Rico, in his hometown. I'm the champion, and they're telling me I have to go fight him in his hometown.
True, yeah.
We offered. we told the WBC, no, I'm not going to Puerto Rico, and they said, well, you have to, or we strip you of the title. So then I said to Jackie, tell him to make the fight at a neutral site, New York. Even New York, I said, that's like his second Puerto Rican hometown,
Mm-hmm.
New York, Vegas. I said, somewhere else besides his hometown. And they said, no, you have to go to Puerto Rico. So I knew it was going to be difficult that I had to be, because I'd seen a lot of fights, when they're in Puerto Rico, Mexican against Puerto Rican, and usually, no matter what happened, if you didn't knock the Puerto Rican out, you're not going to win.
Right.
And so I felt like I had to knock him out to win the fight, and I think maybe that was my mistake, that I was trying to load up on punches to knock him out, but I pressured him. I hit him with a lot of body shots and head shots, and I thought I won the fight. But when I went back to the corner, as soon as I got to the corner and the 15th round, Jackie McCoy said, you won the fight, but I don't think you're going to get it. And sure enough, I didn't get it. And then they refused to give me the rematch, which was in my contract. We had a clause for a rematch, and they refused to fight me. And what was amazing is that the WBC did not enforce it and did not make them, give me the rematch. In fact, right after that, within months, he signed to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. And I think, that was it. I think that WBC sold me out because they got a bigger sanction fee because that was a multi-million-dollar fight. I mean,
Yeah.
Red Leonard was the challenger. He got $1.5 million. And Benitez was the champion. He got $1 million. So I just got really, really frustrated with the game at that point, and that's why I retired right after the Duran fight. I mean, I still thought I had a lot of. I could have moved up to 154 and fought, like Duran did, but I just said, no, that's enough. I'm tired of all the politics and really being disrespected by the WBC.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. And then you lost by split decision, meaning that there was a judge for your side too.
Oh yeah, no, that's that's what was even more. And I thought the referee was a little bit. I don't know if he took a pay, but he wasn't letting me fight inside. Every time we got close, he would jump in and break us up without even. I mean, we weren't even tied up. I was just looking for spots to hit him in the body, which is was my game, And then he would just jump in between us and break us up. And in fact, my Jackie complained to me. He says, why are you messing? Why are you breaking him up when they're not even tied up? And he just put his hand up on Jackie like, no, don't talk to me,
Wow. Well, your very next fight, you fight Roberto Duran. You're fighting all these guys back to back, and this is why you're in the Hall of Fame. Roberto Duran, another tough guy. Another tough fight there. What do you remember about that fight there at Madison Square Garden?
When they offered that fight, I took it right away. I thought I could beat Roberto, and I thought a win over Roberto Duran would be almost like retiring with a world title. Right? While you win,
Did you have that in mind? Did you have that walking in?
Yeah,
this is your last.
That was my last. That was going to be. I had already decided I was going to retire on my birthday. On my 30th birthday, I was going to retire, which was going to be August 10th of 1979, and that fight was in June of '79. So that was going to be my last fight. And I thought a win over Roberto would be like retiring with a title. And so, we got ready for the fight. It was supposed to be a 12-round title eliminator fight first, where the winner was going to get a title fight against Benitez. And then Benitez signed to fight Ray Leonard. So then they cut the fight to a 10-rounder. I really thought, he surprised me. Not his power, even though, a lot of people think that, Roberto was a hard punch. I mean, he went up and destroyed David Moore at 154. Mm-hmm. Then he went up and fought. I mean, he fought Marvin Hagler. He fought at 160 and dropped Ivan Barkley. But that was not what surprised me. His speed and his movement what surprised me. He just kind of outboxed me. He out hustled me, I think that's why I lost that fight. He just was able to kind of outmaneuver me. He was a little quicker than I expected. His hand speed was faster. His foot speed was faster. He was in and out, side to side. So he boxed a really, really good fight.
And I remember that interview. It was kind of like sad to see it, that interview after, like when you're saying that was the end and that you were going to retire from there. Were you pretty sad that you were leaving this sport, even though that you wanted to get the heck out of there?
No, I really wasn't. I was really finished. Like I said, it was never my favorite sport. Yeah. It just turned out that I was like the coach said in the Army, I was just a natural, and I think that came from all the work my dad put in. When we were kids, so I had a base of growing up, with boxing gloves in the house, and it just kind of came natural to me. And I was a better fighter than I was a baseball player. So I ended up where I was supposed to be, But at the end, I was ready to leave, and I had a degree. I had job offers my degree is in Parks and Recreation Administration. So I worked for the city of Westminster. My whole 7 years of boxing from when I started, I got a job in the Parks and Recreation program. I was running a park in the city of Westminster part-time while I was training and going to school. And then they told me, as soon as you finish boxing your career, you have a full-time job here. So I was going to do that. Yeah, so I was going to do that. And then in 1977, they called me from their show Taxi. They wanted me to do the show. Yeah. And I told them, well, I'm not an actor. And they said, well, it's okay. You're going to play yourself. You're going to play a champion. So I was like, okay. So I went to the set. I met everybody. And then I did the show. And then I was like, man, I like this. I want to do this. Yeah. I went back to Long Beach and I took an acting class. And then I actually got a private acting coach from the theater department at UCLA. and I started training to become an actor. So when I retired in 1979, I got an agent, I got a manager, and I started working right away. I mean, I started getting acting jobs really quickly, and so that's what I've been doing ever since. I have a project now of my own. I actually going to do a movie on my life story.
Oh, that'd be great.
It's called Palomino. Actually, I have a meeting Wednesday with the producers and the writers. We're doing some little bit of a rewrite on the script, and then moving forward. I'm doing a movie this year that Edward James Olmos is directing. It's called the Joaquin Murrieta story. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Yeah,
it's a true story.
That leads up to Zorro, or Zorro was like some kind of
right? It's kind of like a Zorro, but it's just a true story about a guy in the late right after the Mexican-American War that.
There was two, wasn't there? Weren't they brothers or Murrieta brothers or something?
They were brothers, and he raised an army in California, and and the U.S. Army sent a guy, they sent a whole company after him, and so that's what the story's about, and they're doing a remake of the movie. So I got a role in that, and Eddie is directing it. So I'm waiting for that. I'm going to be. I have that meeting Wednesday with my people, and I'm going to meet with my agent about possible work and a couple of shows that are on TV now. The cleaning lady. You seen that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah. It's about a lady that gets involved with the cartel, and it's a new show, and hoping to get something. I would love to get something on Yellowstone, though. I love westerns.
Yeah, those are good. I could actually picture you in something like that. And what is that like? You brought up your first acting gig in Taxi. What was that like? To be in a movie? Did you get nervous?
I was. I was really nervous in the beginning, but what was amazing about sitcoms is that you get to rehearse a whole week before you shoot the show. Yeah, so I was there, Monday, and we rehearsed all the way through Friday, and then we shot the show on Friday night in front of a live audience. They let people in, and so being there a whole week, hanging out with all the guys at the show, they were all huge boxing fans. Tony Danza was a fighter himself at one time, and so we just talked and had a good time. So I was. By the time we shot it, I was pretty relaxed and loose, and because I'd already been hanging out with the guys, and it was really cool. I mean, I think that's why.
Did you know Tony from before, like from his boxing days?
No,
did he know you?
He knew me because I was a world champion, but he had been a fighter in New York.
Yeah, he was
before he got to show Taxi.
Right.
So he was the one. When they called me, I said, "Well, I'm not an actor." I said, "Why are you calling me?" He goes, "Well, Tony Danza wants you to do the show." And so he was the one who recommended me to come, because he saw the script about the champion. He spars the champion, and he goes, "Oh, you got to get Carlos Palomino."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so they got me, and then I fell in love with the work, and I wanted to do more of it. So that's how it happened, And so I passed up on that job at City of Westminster, and I started my acting career. I've done a lot. Got some more stuff coming up, so I feel good about it.
I know in one of your movies, trying to think, I saw like the covers of some of your movies, and one of them said at the bottom, like featuring Alexis Arguello, I believe, on it.
He was no.
What do you remember about? What do you remember about Alexis?
Arguello was a great guy. that movie, I was starring in the movie. I had a producer director who came to me and said, "Hey, I have an idea to do a project, with you. You be the star of it. You starring in it." I said, "Really?" Well, so he offered me this role in a movie where I was the lead actor. And then I said, "Well, you got to put some of my friends in." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I want Alexa Arguello in the movie, Ruben Castillo, Amanda Muñiz, Little Red Lopez. I got them all in the movie." Yeah. So he wrote the script about, I was like a special agent, and and he wrote them in, and then but Alexis got a bigger role, so he and I team up, and we take out the bad guys at the end. So we shot the film in Hawaii, so he came in Hawaii for about 2 weeks. We hung out, and we got to meet. I knew him already. We had hung out a couple of times, but we had a chance to spend like 2 weeks together. Greatest guy, man, just sweet, man, just really, really. And then, he loved people, and people loved him.
Yeah.
Every time we went out, and even in Hawaii, every time we went out, I mean, first of all, people thought sometimes people thought I was Alexis, and he told me sometimes people thought he was Carlos Palomino. But we had the same mustache.
Yeah.
So we went out together to dinners and had hung out, and people were running up to us and getting autographs and talking to us, and people just loved him, and he loved people, and he was just a great guy. And it was just really sad, just really sad how his life ended. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I talked to his son, Alexis Jr. once in a while.
Oh, that's great. As a kid, one of my favorite fighters was Pepino Cuevas as well. Was there ever talks that you would actually, fight him at one point?
Yeah, we actually met one time. I think he had about 3 or 4 title defenses. I had 2 or 3, and people were already screaming, about us fighting each other, so he was in town one time with the manager, and we actually got together, had lunch, and we talked about fighting each other and what it would take and what kind of money we could make, fighting each other, because we could have sold out the Coliseum in LA, and so we thought both his manager and Jackie both thought let them see how far they can go defending, just make some money. He make some money, we make some money, and then at the end, let's say 8, whatever, 6, 7, 8 title defenses. We'll talk about it, see if we can get maybe we can get $1 million a piece for the fight. This is 1978. I mean, in 77, nobody was talking about $1 million paydays for welterweights. Yeah. I mean, Muhammad Ali was making $1 million a fight, but he was a heavyweight. Yeah. And so we talked about that, and then we actually told we're gonna make this fight, but we want to get $1 million. And she said, I think you can. We'll sell out the Coliseum. We'll do. Back then, it wasn't pay-per-view. It was you have to go to the theater to watch the fight.
Yeah, that's right.
She said, we'll get close circuit, get a piece of that, and you'll definitely. So after I announced that after the Benitez fight, that's the fight I wanted. I wanted to make the Pepino fight right after the Benitez fight. Unfortunately, I lost that in Puerto Rico, and it never happened. So, and then he went and fought, Tommy Hearns.
And lost.
Yeah.
And last year I interviewed Richie Sandoval on this podcast, and I remember I mentioned about that Polish airline flight 007. Yeah. And I think you even commented on it about your brother Paul, and he had talked about him and said that he had lost many friends like Paul on that. What can you tell us about Paul?
Well, he was just a great kid. I mean, he was 11 years younger than me, and I just remember when I used to call home after tournaments in the Army to talk to my dad, just to tell him how it went. Mm-hmm. I could always hear him in the background going, "Let me talk to him. I want to talk to Carlos. Yeah. And he would let my dad would give him the phone, and he'd say, I want a box. And he'd tell me, I want a box. He was, 6, 7 years old, and I was like, no, you're not going to box. What do you want to box? I said, one dummy in the family is enough. and so then I got out and turned pro, and he was just begging to come to the gym. And then my dad would yell at me, take him to the gym. What the hell? He wants to box. What's your problem? And I said, why? Why does he have to box? I would, let him do something else. Let him play baseball, And I actually got him a tennis coach, and he played tennis. And he actually made the varsity tennis team in high school. But he would always, he wanted to box, and he would come back to, he had his first kid amateur fight when he was like 10 years old. And he had over 80 of those junior fights. He joined when he took part, and then he turned 16, and he went to senior fights. And he had 12. He was 12-0 with 8 knockouts. And he wanted to turn. He was about to turn 18. He wanted to turn pro when he turned 18. And I kept, in the 1980, he was going to turn 18, and then I kept telling him, the Olympic Games are coming up. Just why don't you wait? Try out for the Olympic team. After the Olympics, you win a gold medal. I made $80 for my first professional 4-round fight. I said, Sugar Ray Leonard won the 1976 gold medal. He made $150,000 for his first 4-round fight. And that's the difference, winning a medal or not. I told him,
Absolutely.
And he would say, no, man, I don't need to go to the Olympics. I can turn pro now, no, man, you got to come on, just wait. And so then we get a call from the Olympic Committee, and they want to put him on this team that's going to Poland to fight the Polish Olympic team. And I said, yeah, that's great. You got to do this because this gives you an upper hand on making the Olympic team. And so, I actually took him to the airport, and when he was walking, I took him to the gate, and when he was walking away, he turned and said to me, "I'm just doing this for you." So it was just devastating. I mean, when we got the news, I mean, it was just, it still affects me. I still think about him almost every day.
And us Latinos being religious people, spiritual people, do you still feel him today? Do you still feel like?
Oh yeah, I tell this when people think I'm crazy, but he actually came to me, and I was having a lot of trouble after his passing because of just every night I remember what he said to me when he was on his way to the plane, and
Right.
And so he came to me one night. I saw him, and he spoke to me in my head. He just said, I don't, this is, he just said, it wasn't your fault. Let it go. He said, I chose my way out. And it was just like,
Yeah.
I just like, it's spiritual. It makes me feel like we all have a time clock in our bodies.
Yeah.
Every one of us, it's like,
yeah.
I had a little sister. I had another little sister that passed when she was 26. I have one of my really, really closest friends just passed. He turned 80. So it's like, you don't know. You just don't know. And it's funny too because I used to run sometimes we ran together. And sometimes because I still work out every day. I still run.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be running him and I can almost feel him running right next to me.
When you did your comeback in '97, you came back for a few fights. Did you just want to try it out one more time? Was there something that was
No, my father passed away in 1995, and I had you'll see in the movie when the movie comes out when you go see him. I had a lot of issues with my dad growing up. He was just a really, really hardcore disciplinarian who didn't take no shit. And wanted things his way and no other way. So he was pretty abusive to me as a kid and growing up. And so when he was in the hospital, he had cancer. When he was in the hospital, the doctors told us, they couldn't do anything for him. And so he told us, take me home. I don't want to die here. So my brother and I just dropped everything. We took him home and we took care of him. And we took care of him for like 6 months before he passed. But during that time, I told my older brother, you know what, man? I got to talk to him. I got to talk to him about those old days, our childhood days. And I got to find out what his mindset, why he treated us the way he did. And my brother was, man, forget it. I'm not doing that. And so I sat with him, and I talked to him. And when he was, it was just the most amazing response after I put all my grievance on the table. Like, you did this, you did that. You told me I was in shit. You told me I was never going to do anything. You told me it was, and he said, what? I said, what do you mean, what? He said, what did I do wrong? He said, look at you. Look at what you've done. You're a champion of the world. You're a college graduate. You're an actor. You've done all that stuff, all because of me. I was like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, because I put it in you. I put that drive in you. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh man. I just kissed him on the forehead. And I said, okay, Dad. Yeah, okay, Dad. He goes, get that thing aquí, get out of here. Yeah, and so that was my destiny, so that's so spiritually I've really grown, because of everything that's happened with him, with my brother Paul, my sister Letty. So I was able to clean the table with him, and it was very funny that night. He let us know that he was leaving after we actually I bought a home for my parents in Westminster, and he converted the garage into like a entertainment room, with a big screen TV in there, and couches and pull-out couches that turn into beds because he had visitors. So that's where we were taking care of him, and so that's where my brother and I were sleeping in there. with him. And then after he passed, they called they came and they got him. And then that night I was laying in bed, just thinking, looking at the ceiling, and all of a sudden a spark blew at the corner of the ceiling, and it went all like a lightning shot across the ceiling of the room, and disappeared. And I was like, "That is that you?"
Yeah, I've seen stuff like
Oh
that
my
too.
God! Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, here I go.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
To prove that he did create a son that was successful. In 2004, you were inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and that's the ultimate goal of every fighter. Only the elite are allowed in there, and you're one.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like I said, it was unbelievable because I didn't think I would make it, and then it was a kind of a joyous time, and a very sad time because I would have wished that he would have been alive to come and see me at the awards, being introduced and inducted, And so I took my two daughters with me to the induction ceremony in New York. It was just totally unbelievable. And then what's amazing is you get a lot of the inductees who are already inducted that come and just hang out with the new inductees, So I got a chance to, hang out with some of the old greats, like Carmen Pasilio, all the old guys. What's his name? They made the movie about Raging Bull, and he was there.
Jake LaMotta.
Just a great night, and just an honor to be there.
And you talked about a movie that's being made of you. You guys are barely in the process, like the early process of just getting all the characters and everything together. Or?
Well, no, we have a script. No, all we need right now is the funding, and we have a producer who just got involved. That's the meeting with on Wednesday. He wants to do a little bit of a rewrite things. The story needs to be heightened a little bit more. He thinks it needs because I wanted to tell the story more of my childhood and more of my life than the boxing. It's kind of like La Bamba.
Right.
It's kind of like La Bamba with boxing in the background instead of music. But they feel it needs a little bit more boxing in it, so they're going to try to figure out what fights they want to include. So we have a script. We have producers. And they are committed to funding it. So as soon as we get the script right and we get a director, I want to make sure that I get a Mexican American or a Mexican director, a young up and coming guy. I'm going to give somebody an opportunity to direct a movie that somebody that that we know will do justice. And it's really good and inspired by the story. It's an inspirational story. It's a story that'll. I think, because I've done a lot of volunteer work working with kids. Mm-hmm. I think it'll give kids an inspiration to know that, no matter where you come from, what you do, how hard things are, if you're willing to work and sacrifice and dedicate yourself to something that you're dreaming of, you can accomplish it.
Very true. Yeah. What do you think of boxing today?
Well, it's turned into an entertainment industry now. It's like, fighters, are picking their own opponents. Right. They're making millions of dollars. And then now you got stupid people like YouTubers that are making millions of dollars, fighting non-fighters, So, I'm amazed at what it's become. Yeah. And I'm amazed that boxing fans are actually paying to watch these YouTubers fight. I will never pay.
Never.
I've never buy one of those fights. No. But there's good fights to see. I mean, you got some young talent. This kid Camboso, they just won the title to beat the lightweight title, and David Haney and the Duran Garcia. I mean, there's a lot of young talent. But I want to see them fight each other. I don't want to see them fight, big fighters. So
that's true.
So that's it. I mean, I'm glad that they're making the kind of money that they're making. I mean, I wish I could have been at that point at the time that I could have made that kind of money. But I'm glad. I mean, because you have, during my time, I was looking at basketball players, football players, baseball players making millions of dollars, and you got world champions making $100,000 a fight. Which is what were my paydays, $150,000 a world title fight, which are 15-round fights, and you got baseball players making millions. And I was wondering why are we underpaid so much? And so now fighters are on the same level as everybody else, and I'm glad to see that.
True that. It's something that is a big positive about things like YouTube and, is that we can see all your fights, on YouTube now, and we can see a lot of the fights from back in the day and enjoy them and understand why you guys are in the Hall of Fame for those that question, and we see your fights, the quality of fights that you guys gave to us, and, why you guys are, who you are. And, that's a great thing about the internet. And Carlos, thank you very much for coming on. And I appreciate all your time and all these memories, man. It makes me think of all the times back then, and you answer a lot of questions that I always wondered about. And I appreciate your time very much, man.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.